Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to St Mary's Vicarage on this Friday, almost lost track of time, the 12th of February. And here we are at the beginning of another weekend, and also, of course, the beginning of half term, though, of course, in a sense, it's very different for our parents with young children because many of them haven't been at school over the past few couple of months. So they've been used to them being at home, and of course now they'll be at home and with no input from schools, as everybody's having a break and the teachers need a break, and of course that frustration that here we are at half term, and of course we're not really allowed to go anywhere. There's nowhere really to take our children apart from some lovely country walks which we can do around here. And though my two boys are now old enough to amuse themselves, I do remember very clearly half terms, particularly February half terms, when Alex and Ben were younger, and we used to enjoy them very much. I would often take some time off, but of course a lot of effort has to go into sometimes amusing your children during that time. And when we're restricted to not really allowed to leave our homes apart from for essential reasons to get food or some exercise, it's gonna be a challenging half term. It's gonna be a challenging half term. Of course, I'm also mindful of the fact that it was this time last year, half term in February last year, when those who were lucky enough to be able to go on holiday, particularly skiing abroad in Italy and elsewhere, which really began to spread the virus across Europe. Lots of people returning from skiing holidays discovered that they had picked something up. And in a sense, so it began. So this half term is a sort of sobering experience, thinking that this time last year we were starting to hear of these cases of this unknown virus that had started in Wuhan in China and seemed now to be spreading across Europe. And this time last year, Kate and I went to Manchester for half term. It was really sort of part of Kate's birthday present. She's a big fan of Lowry, the artist, and has always wanted to see the Lowry galleries and such like. So we had a few days in Manchester, and we were quite aware or wary of the fact of this virus that was coming in and reports that we were hearing about it. But of course, in a sense, there was no wearing of masks or separation or anything like that at all. I think the advice at the time was, to wash your hands and such like, those sorts of things. But we were aware of it. So sitting here on the eve of the February half-term holiday 2021, and mindful that we have now been really living and battling this virus for a year now, and though the end is in sight, or in a sense, though I think this virus clearly is going to be with us always, though the sort of end of being able to understand it and control it and return to some sense of normality, that horizon or landfall is visible. We're still a long way. We're still a long way from that yet, and it's unclear as to when schools are going to go back. Of course, the government was hoping for the 8th of March, but teachers I know are quite sceptical about that, bearing in mind that the government said it would give schools 2 weeks' notice. Well, that would really have to be next week in half term, and it doesn't sound or seem like that is going to be the case. So it may sadly be the case that our children are out of school and lockdown continues right up to Easter. Anyhow, here we are at the weekend, which of course is also Valentine's Day on on Sunday, and we're going to be doing a special Valentine's Day service. We're going to be doing Zoom breakfast church, which we did before. Zoom link will go out with the notice sheets today or tomorrow. I've got to send that back to Mike, and you'll be able to log on to that on Zoom if you wish, and join far more interactively in the service, which I hope you do, because we're going to look at sort of love, relationships, and God's love, and all that sort of thing, and have a bit of fun with that. We've got some great hymns that I've lined up for us on the theme that we can sing, and also doing, in a sense, some shout outs, I suppose you might call them. So if you've got a message you'd like me to read out to your loved one, or there's, if your loved one has been gathered up to glory and you would like me to read a message of or say something about them, then yeah, please send me an email, and I'll read those messages out. So I hope we'll have a bit of fun with our worship on Sunday morning, 10 o'clock on Zoom. But that will also be live streamed via Facebook, technology permitting. It all seemed to work last time, so hopefully all will be good with that. So that's this Sunday at 10 a.m. Of course, the church is open still for daily worship, private prayer and reflection. Very grateful to the church, to Sue, our church warden, here, making sure the church is all open, and also down at Pentridge. So, during half term, if you want to bring the children in and spend some time in the church, then please do so. The church is open for private prayer and reflection. Now, Bill's just put up a note. Yes, if you're looking for a good film, I've been waiting for this one to come out, Bill. It's a new Tom Hanks film, which is available on Netflix, The News of the World. It's had pretty good reviews, and I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Tom Hanks. I honestly don't think there is a film of his I have not liked. I think he's such a versatile actor, and, in a sense, sort of such a lovable character. So really looking forward to this film. I don't know whether we'll be watching it tonight or on Saturday, but yeah, it's his first Western, as Bill points out, and it looks very, very interesting. So that's on Netflix if you're looking for a good film to watch. Thanks, Bill, for that recommendation. And that's if you're on Netflix, you can see that there. Right, so what else is happening? Lent. Just a reminder that we are going to be running Lent sessions online on Wednesday evenings through Lent. The actual course will begin a week on Wednesday. So next Wednesday, of course, is Ash Wednesday. So our first sort of Lenten meeting at 7 o'clock in the evening, Ash Wednesday, will be it would normally be a Holy Communion, but it will be a service, a sort of service of the Word for us to mark the beginning of Lent. I hope next week early next week to email out little cards, a bit like this one that the Bishop has sent me, little cards with an ashen cross on it. And also you'll get a copy, here it is. So I've got a hard copy here, but I've ordered this magazine here, Lent Extra, but I've got it as a PDF download. Okay, so what it is, it's produced by the same people that produce our Sunday sheets and the other reflections that you've been receiving, and basically it's a 47-day Lenten reflection. So this is to help with your own sort of journey through Lent, and every day has a particular theme, some prayers and readings and reflections. It also recommends some films, and what I was interested to see, that I don't know if you can see that there, that one of the films it's recommending to watch over the Lenten period is The Way, which was a film that we watched last year. If you remember, we actually started our Lenten film nights last year before the first lockdown, and that was one of the great films that we watched. So there's all sorts of lovely material in here to really encourage us and help us through Lent. So that will be that will be emailed out next week, maybe even this Sunday. I just need to check if the download is available, so it might come out tomorrow or later today with the with the Sunday sheets. So it's a PDF, so you can just download it onto your computer or your iPad or device and hopefully read it from there. I haven't got hard copies because I just felt it would be easier to distribute digitally. However, if anybody is desperate for a hard copy, I can get back to Redemptorist Publications and order a few, but hopefully people will be able to download it as a PDF. So I hope you enjoy that, and I hope it's helpful for you as we journey through Lent and towards the great celebration of Easter. As I said, on the 17th, we'll have a service of the Word to mark the beginning of Lent in that evening. And then the following Wednesday, which is the 24th, we will have our first, in a sense, Lent course. And then on that evening, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be exploring over the coming weeks, looking at just prayer and spirituality. But the first session is actually going to be ascertaining our personality types and our prayer types. So on that evening, we'll email the sheets out to you and everything. We're going to do a very simple personality indicator test to work out which personality types you are, and then from that we will look at the 4 different prayer types that link to the 16 different personality types. And then what we're going to do each week is we will explore different aspects of prayer and different aspects of that particular prayer personality type in more depth. So I hope that will be an interesting thing to do. I've done it with different groups before, and they found it very helpful and useful in sort of understanding how they can develop their prayer life, and understanding why some forms of prayer people struggle with, and some forms of prayer sort of people take to like a duck to water. But of course, it's all down to our sort of individual styles and personalities. So that's what we'll be doing over Lent. I'm hoping that next Sunday, the 21st of February, first Sunday in Lent, we will be able to have a physical Holy Communion service, down at St Rumbold's, Pentridge. But we're just keeping an eye on the COVID rates here. Unfortunately, we went right down, but we've now gone up again quite considerably. So we just do need to be aware of that. But we'll make an announcement early next week as to what is happening on the 21st. So there we go. Now, if you follow the Facebook page, obviously if you're watching us live today, you're linked to the church Facebook page. If you scroll down, as they say, you'll find, if you haven't read it already, a very interesting article that was published in the Spectator recently, that was written by the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Archbishop of York, entitled "The Defence of the Church of England." And as you're probably aware, the Church of England's come under huge criticism over this COVID crisis for sort of being absent. And of course, the decision in the first lockdown to, close our churches and not hold any worship and such like, and not just not being able to have worship on a Sunday, but physically locking the door of our churches so people couldn't get in, was not a popular move, and it did cause a lot of upset. And it has to be said that sort of, if you're watching your national news, daily news, listening to the radio, it could easily be said that the Church of England has sort of been absent over this particular crisis. But of course, that's not true at local level. Many clergy, like myself and others, have tried to come up with inventive ways of ensuring that we continue to keep in touch with the community. Many churches are involved in support networks within the community, or running food banks, or all sorts of things. So it's a good article, I think. So do scroll down and click on the link there, and you can read the article in the Spectator by the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Archbishop of York. Anyhow, let's turn to our Bible reading for today. Let's just change my goggles. So continuing to read through, we're into Mark's Gospel now. So Mark chapter 7:31 to 37, entitled, "He makes the deaf hear and the dumb speak." Returning from the district of Tyre, Jesus went to the way of Sidon towards the Sea of Galilee, right through Decapolis region. And they brought him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech. And they asked him to lay his hands on him. He took him aside in private, away from the crowd, put his fingers into his ears and touched his tongue and with spittle. Then he looked up to heaven, and he sighed and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, "be opened." And his ears were opened, and the ligament of his tongue was loosened, and he spoke clearly. And Jesus ordered them to tell no one about it. But the more he insisted, the more widely they published it. Their admiration was unbounded. He has done all things well, they said. He makes the deaf hear and the dumb speak. So, another healing miracle there from Jesus. But of course, what the gospel writer is, what Mark is wanting to emphasize here by putting this miracle in his gospel at this point, is of course the prophecies of Isaiah, that when he who brings good news, the feet of him who bring good news, that sort of prophetic vision in Isaiah that the lame will walk, the deaf will hear, the blind will see. So in a sense, why Mark places this particular miracle here early on in the Gospel of Mark, there's a turning point at chapter 8 in Mark's Gospel with the healing of a blind man, which is just coming up. But before that, it's trying to re-emphasize, in a sense, who Jesus is, and in a sense giving subtle hints, sometimes subtle, sometimes quite obvious, links back to the Old Testament and the prophecies of the Messiah. And what we see in the beginning of Mark as we go through is Jesus, in a sense, fulfilling lots of these prophecies, acting as the prophet said the Messiah would when he comes. When we get to chapter 8, which will probably be next week, the healing of the blind man is very, very interesting, and I'll probably say more about that when we get to it, which is that the writer Mark in his gospel, he places that at that point because the miracle is also a metaphor for the blindness of the disciples, because until that point they have failed to understand who Jesus is. And it's after this healing in Mark's gospel that Peter makes his first sort of declaration of faith. So it's quite important to understand that how the Gospels are constructed. We can fall into a bit of a trap sometimes of thinking that the stories in the Gospel are very linear. That it's sort of like a daily historical record of what happened. That isn't the case. And what all of the Gospel writers do is they take particular incidents from the mission and ministry of Jesus, those 3 very crucial years of his life, and they weave them together in the gospel narrative to help emphasize particular aspects of Jesus's divinity and God's love for us. So that doesn't mean they're not true or whatever. It's in a sense that that way that writers work to emphasize things. And I think the best way of understanding this is, of course, the parables, because in all of the Gospels we hear the various parables, but if you take the gospel in a very literal sense, it would seem that Jesus only ever told the parable of the sower once. He only ever told the parable of the lost coin once, etc., etc. Well, that cannot be the case, because as Jesus travelled around, like any good preacher, he had his narratives, his stories, his sermons, for want of a better word, at hand. And as he went from town to town, village to village, he would have told those stories again and again and again. He would have told the parable of the lost sheep umpteen times to in different towns and villages as he went through. Now, I've always laughed because some of the disciples sitting there who have probably heard the parable of the lost sheep for the umpteenth time probably sat there and went, oh, not this one again. But of course, what's important is the fact that the disciples were hearing these stories over and over again. What that was doing was very much establishing an oral tradition, so that after Jesus's death, the disciples had that huge bank of knowledge of Jesus's preaching and could probably repeat the stories that he had told almost verbatim, which in a sense then gives us a huge amount of accuracy in the gospel as to how those parables are. And the fact that you can look at the synoptic gospels particularly and see the same parable in all three gospels, synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark and Luke, and you can see the parable the same in all gospels, shows that how that source material has come together and how much we can rely on it. So so there we go. But I'm sure we'll get to Mark chapter 8 before too long as we go along. Right. Well, folks, it's time to move on. I hope you have a good Friday today, whatever you're doing. It's a fairly dull and cold day. Of course, Friday night in the vicarage is always a bit lively. We'll be putting the record player on and the cocktail cabinet will be opened as usual. And maybe we'll be watching that new Tom Hanks film this evening. But in the meantime, I hope you have a really good day. Just to say, unfortunately, I have to say there's not going to be a broadcast tomorrow. I've got a clash of two things. I'm supposed to be at Diocesan Synod tomorrow, which I don't think I'm going to make, but because I have some other issues that I have to attend to tomorrow morning. So I won't be with you tomorrow morning, but I look forward to seeing you on Sunday for our Zoom breakfast church with a Valentine's theme. So do take care, folks. Let's just close with the grace. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Do take care.